Hey, what's up everyone? It's JR again from Holy Faith TV. I wanted to come on tonight and talk about a conversation that I had with an acquaintance of mine. His name is Damien Goddard. I was over at his house for a couple hours yesterday. And some of you may know of Damien, you may know his story, especially up here in Canada, or anybody that follows the happenings in the traditional Catholic world. You probably have at least heard of Damien before, who is a great guy as far as I'm concerned. I wouldn't call him a best friend or anything like that, but you know, I've gotten to know him a little bit through text and once or twice in person, and you know, I think a lot of the guy. I like the guy. So for those of you that don't know Damien's story, what happened is back in, I think it was 2011, he was working for one of the major sports broadcasting companies up here in Canada. He had built a reputable career in the media up here in Canada. And what happened is he got fired because of his support of Christian marriage or traditional marriage, whichever name you'd like to call it by. And he lost his job, and unfortunately his options were pretty limited after that. And he dangled, I should say, with Catholic media. And as he progressed along the slope of progression more towards the traditional Catholic faith, he found even his speaking engagements and other things were limited. And, you know, now he's just trying to make ends meet. And I don't want to get too into detail on his situation out of concern obviously for his own privacy, but the point I wanted to make is after a conversation yesterday, after spending a couple hours with him, when I was on my way home, I got thinking of how, you know, we're almost standing in a dirty mud puddle, trying to wear a clean suit, trying to keep our suit clean, and we wonder why mud is splashing up on the pants of our suit. And you know, it's pretty much impossible these days to live in this culture and not in some way be affected by it if you're trying to live a good Catholic life, and if you're trying to hold the faith as it's always been held, and you hold to the unchangeable dogmas of the Catholic Church. It's only a matter of time before you're going to be affected by the culture that surrounds you and by the progression of liberalism, because error hates truth, and error will persecute truth until it gets its way. Ultimately, we know that truth will prevail, but that being said, it can definitely do a lot of damage in people's lives, and especially with people's livelihoods. You know, and I look at a guy like Damien, for example, he's got children, and obviously he was in the public broadcast media, and which is just totally dominated by liberals and completely infiltrated by all the wrong people, without me having to name names. But it's not just going to be people like Damien going forward in the future that are going to be affected by this. I made the comment to him that 5 years from now, you know, I work for a major corporation right now, and 5 years from now, I don't think it's going to be open for somebody that holds my faith to even work for a large corporation. And anybody listening out there, if you work for a large corporation or maybe even run a small business, be prepared. Be prepared for persecution. Maybe you already have been, and I know that I definitely have been in ways not obviously as large as Damien's, but you know, down the road, it definitely can happen to just about anyone. And my point of bringing this up is I think I made this comment to Damien yesterday, is I think that as a Catholic, you almost have to find ways to live off the land, so to speak. Now, I don't necessarily mean going back to traditional farming and trying to make a living that way, although that could definitely be an option. I think it's always a good idea to move out of a city if possible. But I think that Catholics in general, they have to find ways, and sometimes we have to get creative in order to find ways to make a livelihood in order to support our families and to get through these very tough and troubled times. It's not easy, and I don't want to make it sound easy whatsoever, because, you know, I feel for, personally, I don't have any kids, but I feel for people that have children that stand up for their faith and then become victims of this liberal left-wing culture that we live in, where if you don't hold all the right positions, you may not be able to find any work. You might not even be able to find a job. You might be completely qualified for whatever job is out there, but because of your faith, you won't be able to find any place to work. And although Damien maybe is an extreme example of somebody that was affected by this ridiculous culture that we live in, it can happen to anybody. And I think as time goes on, well, you see it even in the United States with the election of Trump, who is not a conservative by any stretch of the imagination. He holds some conservative positions for sure, but he's definitely not a conservative. But people have just went ballistic. People on the left have went completely crazy, and they'll do anything right now to persecute anybody that supports Trump. So be prepared, people. Be prepared and start thinking, start being creative, start thinking of ways that, you know, you can earn a livelihood. But even then, even if you are on your own, the problem is today is that we need things like the internet to conduct business, and especially to conduct commercial business. And the big corporations even control that. So it's going to get very tough. Be prepared for tough times ahead. Don't be surprised if, you know, you can't buy a vehicle someday. Now that might sound extreme to some people, but I could see that happening down the road. Look 10 years ago where we were in Canada or the United States. Did we really think that at that time, that 10 years from then, we would be where we are today? Obviously, lots of people said that we would be, but I think the average Joe didn't think that we would advance in liberalism as fast as we have. As fast as to the point where, you know, we're having a debate over who can use which washroom. So take a good, long, hard look at your future and your career, because I think it's something that people often, they're unprepared for it. I know even myself, I would be unprepared for it today, but luckily I'm thinking along the right tracks and thinking of, hey, 5 years from now, I don't know that I can even work for these major corporations. Not that I wouldn't work for them. Well, I may not work for them just because of some of the positions that they hold and for some of the things that they support, but they may not even allow me to work there. That's all for now.